Welcome, Jubilee, to Conversation Next. Conversation Next. Let's go. Jubilee, welcome to Conversation Next. It's the year of new beginnings, and God is requiring new conversations. God is challenging us to go farther, to go beyond just the normal conversations, but to have next level conversations. You're invited into our sacred place. As you have invited us into your home, we're inviting you into our lives, into our ministry, into some very important conversations. And I'm so excited that you have tuned in tonight for Conversation Next. We are a church without walls, and our prayer is that the Lord would continue to give you new revelation, new opportunity. You would make new decisions. You would have new conversations. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for this conversation. We thank you for this opportunity. We thank you for this new beginning. We thank you, Lord, that with every new beginning, there are new decisions. There are new conversations. And Father, you desire to speak to us and to reveal yourself to us. Do that tonight. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Come on, Jubilee. Conversation Next. Let's go.
Good evening and welcome to another Conversation Next discussion. This is the time where we use this space to discuss subjects that affect our society and culture. And so we're just so excited to bring you in on a really important discussion tonight where we're talking about the pandemic and its effect on families. And so we have Pastors Roberson and Mima with us, and we're going to dive in about just some things that have recently happened to your family. And I think it's important for us to discuss it as a church because one of the things is that, you know, we know that the pandemic is here. We know that COVID is affecting a lot of people in our congregation, but we don't really get a chance to talk about like when you're in it and the aftermath of, you know, just the pandemic and COVID-19 and all of those things. So, yeah, let's just talk about it.
Yeah. Well, we started the pandemic just like everyone else, just being cautious. Some might even say overly cautious.
Well, before you get in, let's overly cautious. Let's talk about it.
I guess one can't be overly cautious, right?
Right.
And so, we had a whole routine when to go grocery shopping, washing everything, and limited guests, limiting just our exposure to different people and all of that stuff. And that lasted a few months and we were in the clear. Different times we had to go get tested because maybe we were in the same room as somebody who was positive. But for the most part, I think it was for at least 8 months, we were all clear. And so... Well,
one of the things that you said, and I really want to hear from Pastor Mima is the whole grocery shopping process. Because I thought I was like a really safe person until I heard Pastor Mima's process with grocery shopping. So I think it's important for people to know like how, like the safety measures that you put in place, not just because of the two of you, but talk about your family makeup for maybe some people that don't know Pastors Mima and Roberson.
Yeah, so our family is comprised of the two of us. We have two small kids. Robin is now 4, Jamie's 2. we're expecting now, and that was the later half of the pandemic. And we have a cousin who lives with us. So a very full family. Prior to the pandemic, we did have a nanny coming to the house to watch one of our children, and our other was going to school. We completely stopped that. So the nanny did not come for about 6 months or so, 6 or 8 months. It was quite some time. It was definitely all through the summer. So she wasn't coming, and we weren't sending the kids to school. We were both working from home pretty much regularly, full time. And so, yeah, we kind of kept to ourselves in our little bubble. With grocery shopping, I mean, social media, I feel like, blew up in the pandemic. So lots of folks were sharing different tips and tools. And there was one account that I found. They were all about cleaning in general, but then they had specifics for the pandemic. And so my process was only one of us went out to do grocery shopping. Often it was me, because, you know, mom always knows what to buy, right? So I would go out once a week to the grocery store, wear my mask, sometimes double mask, sometimes wearing gloves. And so I would buy everything, do whatever I got to do. Then I would get to the house and I would put everything in the front mudroom, right? Then I would go in through the back door and I would take off everything I was wearing, all my clothes, everything I was out with, automatically throw it in the washer, change completely, change my mask, put on a separate set of gloves, and then had my little, at the time, like Clorox concoction. And I would open the front door of the mudroom and I would go item by item and I would wipe every single item with the bleach solution.
It was a day.
We took a day to just shop and clean, and then there's putting everything away, right? And then like your typical washing your fruits and vegetables, etc. So it definitely was a process. Some might call it too much, but that I think was what was most comfortable for me, and knowing that that was the safest for me and my family. And of course at the time, not knowing anything, right? Like, how was transmitted, exposure, where it's coming from. So for me, it was like, I just need to do this to give me my peace, to know that like, hey, I've done everything that I can to make sure that my home is safe, secure, and we're good.
And I think that is such an important part of your story, because a lot of us still today don't know how people are getting it. And the news is telling us one thing, but there are still times that people are getting COVID and they don't know how they contracted it. So I think you saying whatever makes someone feel comfortable in terms of their safety is really important. So one of the other things that is really important to mention is, I know at the beginning of the pandemic, you and I had conversations about, possible pregnancy, right? And, with the pandemic being, so unknown, right? You had mentioned, I don't know if I want to get pregnant, during the pandemic, because having to go to the doctor, like, what is all that going to be like? And then now, Here we are. So how has that been for you from the earlier conversations to now, being pregnant?
Yeah, it was hard. And, empathy to those who have already had children, are expecting children now. It's tough, and everywhere is different as it relates to like prenatal care. We've been grateful enough that we can both go to appointments and it not be an issue. I know many people who can't. It's just them by themselves, and then there's all these violations. You can't record, and you can't even keep all the information together. So it definitely was hard in the beginning when we first started talking about it, because it was like, how are we going to do this? And what does that mean? I think what happened for myself, I think you had already made up your mind. You're like, yeah, I'm ready for my son. He was like, yeah, I'm ready for my child.
Yes.
I am ready.
I was ready for another male in the house.
Yes, he definitely was. But I think for me, what flipped the switch was, you get to a place in the pandemic, I think this is for everyone, where you're kind of like, I can't stop living my life, because this is happening. Like, I can't put everything on pause because of this health issue that we're going to be dealing with we don't even still know how long.
Right.
And so I was like, you know what? I'm like, if my husband feels good about it, and if I feel good about it, and if we feel just genuinely ready in general, without even considering the pandemic, then like, let's just do it, right? And everything else will fall into place and be okay. And thankfully, graciously, you know, we have been okay.
That's so good, because I think, you know, we're talking about several different, you know, matters that have happened in your family. So first, the pandemic hits, the safety, the precautions that you're going through to, you know, keep your house in order. Then you're expecting, you're both working from home, and then you're back in the offices certain days, and you know, and so now bring us up to date, Pastor Roberson, in terms of, you know, what happened.
Yeah. I mean, I think around the holidays, we had like 2 weeks off where we were not, well, Mima was definitely working from home, but I was not going into the office. I was just fine. And I think it was the day after Christmas, right? The day after Christmas, I just started not feeling well. But it was because we've been home and because everybody that we're around is taking caution and stuff, COVID didn't even come to mind. And so I just started not feeling well at all. I'm not someone who gets sick often. Like, I don't get sick. I don't get fevers. It's very rare for me to not feel good. And so I remember it was like a Saturday night. Christmas was on a Friday, right? It was Saturday, and I was like, I spent the whole day, and I'm still not feeling well. I said, guys, I feel like I have a fever. And I had to preach live on that Sunday. And so I was like, just to be cautious, I'm going to be around. I want to go get tested in the morning. And just so we could be safe. And I was like, you know, in case I have it, I was like, I'm going to just sleep in the guest room, stay away from the kids. And I remember Bima and everybody was like, you know, you don't have COVID. Like, we didn't go anywhere. Right. And no one around us is symptomatic or anything. Like, you don't have it. Like, we didn't do anything. Like, we had a small wedding in our house 2 days before, and it literally was like 8 people. Yeah. It was 8, including our family that was in the house. And so we were like, no, and our parents they don't go anywhere. They're elderly. So I woke up on Sunday morning and I went and got tested, got a rapid test. And then before I got home, they called and said, yeah, you're positive. And at that point, I think that was just like, what are you talking about? Like, where could we even have gotten this from? Like, these are the measures that we take. And being positive, called Mima on my way home, got home, and it was straight, well, you're going to quarantine in the basement just to make sure that I don't affect the kids, especially her. She's expecting. So all those things are happening. And then I have to like, oh my gosh, I have church. So I'm supposed to be preaching tonight at 6 p.m. So dealing with all the communication that needs to happen, because there's responsibilities, there's contact tracing, there's all of that stuff. And, you know, dealing with all of our families. I think by Sunday afternoon, Mima had gotten tested and she was also positive. And then by Monday, maybe a couple of days later, we tested our girls. That same day, we had a doctor's appointment with the girls, but they were like, if they're not showing any symptoms, hold on. But I was like, I want to get the girls tested. Because if they're negative, I would rather them go to their grandparents so we can kind of go through this. But our girls were positive. So by 3 days from me finding out, we had a full house that had COVID. And we were dealing with just expectations from outside contact tracing. Gladly, everybody that was at the wedding was negative. So, you know, we still to this day, we don't even know where we got it from. And we thinking that it's, you know, we order food out sometimes, different things. We thinking that from pumping gas in the car when going somewhere, we just don't, to this day, it's like, it's very difficult because of the way we live in our bubble and the measures that we take. It goes to show you that it doesn't even matter. It matters to be safe, but you can still be at risk.
Right.
And so to anybody that's saying, I remember I used to make fun of my wife all the time for all the stuff she used to have us do. Like cleaning all the time. It's like we have a whole cabinet full of cleaning supplies. Like when she gets in the car, it doesn't matter if she was the last one driving it. She's like wiping it down. And she won't touch any doorknobs. Like she has gadgets for days that will keep us COVID free. And I used to make fun of her so much, but we still got it.
Yeah.
So to anybody I don't think there's anything you can do that can be too much in making sure that you're safe from this. And so we just now had to deal with the emotions of experiencing symptoms, dealing with small children that have it, my wife being pregnant and having it as well, and then, making sure that we were creating a safe and healthy environment for our home.
Right. And I think that is such a great point. Like we can put all the precautions and all the safety measures in place, but because this is so unknown, it's, we just really have to trust God, to make sure that we're doing all the things. But even in doing all the things, there's still that possibility that you can contract COVID.
Yeah.
And so what are some of the things like, our daughter recently has contracted COVID, and then she had to have the kids tested like you, and the kids also have COVID, so it kind of spread through their family. And I remember having a conversation with her, and when she first found out, and literally she was on the phone crying uncontrollably, thinking, I didn't know I had this. And I'm thinking of, all of the people that maybe I came in contact with that could have contracted COVID from me. Like, how did you feel? Like, once you found out you had it, were you, like, when you were going through your mind and doing the contact tracing, what emotions did you feel?
Yeah. I mean, at the time I was 5 months pregnant, so I already was in my emotions by default. And I remember there were many moments where I would just have these, I guess you could call them almost freakouts. I don't even know how else to describe them, but it was like, oh my gosh, we were around these people and that people, and then we had the wedding. So I'm like, oh my gosh, gotta make sure my family's okay, right? My parents are okay, and who else was there? And I know you were kind of sort of around other folks, and it was like, oh my gosh, we gotta make sure they're okay. It was really hard. It was really hard to not get in your head more than anything.
Especially for us, it happened around Christmas. And so because I started showing symptoms on the day after Christmas, so I'm thinking about who was I around on Christmas and Christmas Day. I was just so happy though that I'm not someone I don't take medicine for things a lot. If I have a headache, I just go through it. I don't use Advil or anything. And so I'm so glad that when I felt like I wasn't okay, I didn't just brush it off. Because I think sometimes our whole house, our symptoms weren't that crazy.
Yeah.
Our kids are asymptomatic, so they didn't have any fevers or anything like that. And so, but I could have easily just gone through the day, come and do what I had to do, and then it would have been just much bigger. I remember a sense of relief, feeling like, you know what, I'm glad that I took time to say, let me just go get tested. And I think sometimes a lot of people may not necessarily know the resources of a rapid test or have the means to kind of go, and there's so many different ones that are available online. We found what we use for tests online, just Googling stuff and asking around. I was just so happy that we got a chance to do that. Nonetheless, there were a couple of days of just being worried about our parents because they're elderly and they were around us 3 days before I found out. So thank to God that they didn't get, and all of that family didn't have it. But that weight of feeling like someone who is high risk, that weight of feeling like someone who's connected to someone who is high risk might be able to get it. It's not a weight that we had a lot of because we're not around a lot of people, but we still had it because of the wedding, and just because I had a mentee that I was close with that was over the house for something, and so I was just like, that weight is something that at one point it's like we did what we could do.
Right.
You know, we were safe, and we had to get it out of our head. The responsibility of it can be really heavy sometimes. And, you know, I think that's something that we dealt with for 2 weeks because that's the time. Because there were some people that were close to us that got it. So we don't know if we got it from them or if they got it from us, but it's like that's something that we had to live with and continuously checked in on with those people.
I know that, you know, for people that are listening, I think the one thing that I can extract from your story is because you had so many safety measures in place, the contact tracing was very easy for you to do. And I think, you know, one of the things that, you know, especially you dealing with young people in your careers and pastoring, it's something that we try to get across to the younger generation is that really try to keep your circle small because it's real. I was just in a conversation with someone, I think it was yesterday, and they were telling me about a 13-year-old who contracted COVID that is in the hospital, you know, and was almost taking a turn for the worse. And so sometimes when you're younger, you feel invincible, like, I'm not gonna get that, like, we're good. But because you were able to, you know, have all these safety measures in place, you were able to just kind of say, okay, this is the small circle that needs to get tested, and let's make sure everyone is okay. And you were able to really shut your house down and, you know, make sure that your family unit was safe while checking on other family members.
Yeah, I know it can be tough. I think at certain points we feel it. We even are dealing with family situations now where we're like, we don't do large gatherings. We don't, like, it's tough because we love people. We love being around people. We love company. But it's safety first. Right. And I think a lot of times, you know, especially, you know, young folks, we love to go out, we love to gather, we love to go over people's houses and all these different things. The reality of these times is a year later, still having to deal with that. It's really difficult. But, you know, I can spend a couple months or a year or two without major gatherings and someone be living well. I think when you juggle those two things, you realize one is way more important than the other. A dinner party and a life, you know, a dinner, we can juggle it, because the thing about COVID is that you just don't know how far it will get.
Right.
You know?
And I think the other thing, you don't know how far it'll get, but then you don't know if someone contracts it, if they have an underlying health issue that hasn't presented itself.
Exactly.
We just this past weekend found out one of our faithful members passed away suddenly, and I was so shocked by it. And you know, of course, we didn't have any information, but I knew that she had underlying health issues, and so my mind just automatically wandered to, did she contract COVID? Did it, you know, exacerbate the health issue that she had? So that's, you know, a lot of people ask, like, when are you opening the church? And I just had someone write me this morning on Instagram, and they said, you know, I'm really interested in getting back in the church. And I said, yes. I said, we miss our congregation so much. We miss the embracing. We miss it's so difficult to, you know, be here and recording, and you look out and you're missing the chairs and the people and the worship and the word. But because we service so many generations and because we are, you know, in our community, we have so many health challenges that, you know, our number one goal is to protect, and not just protect, but also to educate. And so that's why this conversation is such a great conversation, because, you know, even with all the safety precautions in place, COVID can still get in, right? It's real.
Oh, yeah.
One of the things that was so helpful is that, you know, COVID has opened our eyes to just how important community is, but also the different ways that we can have community. You know, we know Zoom is huge right now, and FaceTime is huge right now, just different things. And I think even for us, when we contracted COVID, I think there's this stigma of secrecy, right? It's kind of like this stigma of shame, or we don't want to tell anybody we have it. And I think it was really interesting to have this conversation because, you know, at this rate, you know, it's 1 in 5 people that you know have either have had COVID. And I think one of the things that really helped us was community. Our church community praying for us, checking in on us, our parents, our brothers, sisters, like making sure, you know, our parents dropping stuff off every day, texting us if we're okay. Everybody has a different remedy that works for it, teas to drink. I think that level of community felt like we had, you know, we had a village rooting for our family, you know, rooting for our children to be okay. It was, and I think that helped us in a way. It helped us mentally. It helped us mentally know that we're not in this alone. And I think not keeping it a secret and being honest with how we're feeling today. If today was a good day, if today was a bad day, you know, with us and the kids and all these different things, it allowed us to go through the process in a healthier state of mind. And so to anybody out there that, you know, feels like they have to go through this alone, if there's somebody that you can trust, if there's a church, if there's a small group, family members, I would say trust them with that information, because their support, as we have noticed, is so helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I would definitely say having gone through COVID, it puts in a different perspective how you treat others, especially when you find out that they're sick, or if you find out they have a family member who's sick, because it definitely affects you in different ways. And like you had said, we had a very mild case, thank God. None of us had to go to the hospital, you know, baby's safe, you know, in the womb and everything. But, you know, unfortunately, there's a lot of people who don't have that, right? Who are in hospitals, who have to be isolated for much longer periods of time. And so I definitely would say that it really, I know for myself, even in my line of work, just really helped me when people mention it or allude to it. It's like, okay, I really want to make sure you actually are okay. Because it's not just the physical, it's also, you know, the mental piece, right? You have college students who are like quarantining in a dorm by themselves for 14 days, right? Or if you live alone, you know, or if you live in a home with people who you don't get along with and are tough to live with, you know? So all of those factors come into play, and I think it really allows, I'm now for sure in a space of being able to say, okay, how can I really better serve our community to make sure that people feel like they actually have that community? You know, people came out for us in ways that I wasn't expecting them to, you know, whether it was dropping off stuff, the phone calls. I can tell you like the 5 people who called me every day, and I'd be like, oh, I don't want to pick up your phone call. I'm like, I'm fine.
No, there became a point, but it was out of love.
Absolutely,
you know?
absolutely.
And I think the COVID struggle is very unique. Because when you say like a college student is quarantining for 14 days in the dorm, I think about all the things we went through. Some of us lost taste for a couple of days, and so I'm thinking about like food and just different things. Great thing is that we knew some people who had COVID before, so someone was like, eat grapefruit every day. Just it helps shocks your, you know, your taste buds. So every day shock your taste buds so you don't lose much of it.
I can't
It worked for us. I don't know if it's gonna work.
We ain't no doctors.
But listen, I ate like 4 because I could not lose my taste. Okay, I ate like 4 big grapefruit a day. But things like that, it's like those things are like, you know, I remember Mima opening the fridge and smelling like This Tostino
salsa.
sauce.
I was like, salsa.
She's like, oh my gosh, I gotta smell salsa. I need to
I was like,
smell
if I can smell the salsa, then I'm in the clear.
You know, she's in the clear. Like, these are things that they are unique to the COVID struggle. That's what I say. And it's like going through them alone, being able to call and laugh about it. It's like, it's so therapeutic.
Yeah.
It's so therapeutic. And so I wouldn't recommend anyone to go through COVID alone. Reach out, and there are virtual communities set up for free in so many different hospitals and clinics. It's like there's so many different, our church, there's small groups. They just reach out and go through this with a family and a community. It makes a world of difference.
Yeah, when I think of the scripture, the joy of the Lord is my strength, right? Yeah. I think, man, if I'm going to go through COVID, I want to go through it with my family that can like make jokes, or just make you laugh, because that joy, because they do say you shouldn't be stressful when you have COVID, because it can, bring on other things. And so I think having that community is really important. I know I've become more sensitive to it. Now, I will say, I feel like you were at my house on Christmas Eve or like the day before, and I don't know about anybody else, but it's like if I'm ever around someone who has COVID, and they get diagnosed with COVID, I feel like I have every symptom of COVID. And, my husband is like, you don't have COVID. And I'm like, but you don't know. Because especially when you guys got COVID, I was like, and I remember saying to Pastor Roberson, I was like, oh, I have to take my safety measures up to another level, because you guys, like your safety measures, like if people thought I was like over the top, I felt like, no, you guys had like some serious safety measures. So I remember saying, okay, guys, we are really shutting this house down. Like, Maddie, don't ask if anybody can come over. Like, have you been tested? Like, it just took it to another level. But I remember just thinking about Robin and Jamie, and my heart was like, oh my God, the little ones. But then hearing that they were okay.
Yeah.
They were perfectly fine. If anything, we both have never been sick together before.
Yeah.
So the hardest part was being sick.
And having two little girls that are on 100 at 6 a.m.
They ran that
to
household
7 p.m.
for 2 weeks.
Oh my! Like they didn't get it. They didn't get it. Robin would be touching your face. Are you okay? What's
You sleeping again?
You're sleeping again, mommy and daddy. But I think on the other end, it made me really think of small children that are very symptomatic. I couldn't have imagined having COVID and taking care of a sick and 2-year-old and a 4-year-old at the same time, fevers and headaches and all these different things. And it made me so, you watch what's on the news, right? And you hear the numbers for the data on children and all these different things, but the reality of it. And so, my heart goes out to anyone that's dealing with small children that have dealt with COVID, because the innocence and them not knowing what's going on, like it hurts our hearts for I think it was 6 months where Robin's like, I miss my teacher. When am I going to school? I miss my friends. And she just started school last year. So it was like, it was a thing. And so one can only imagine like that for anyone who's going through that. So it made us really just reality just set in as far as what other people may be going through when we saw how we were dealing with children that were okay versus someone who may not have been dealing with children.
Yeah. Definitely will say we were absolutely lucky, blessed. God definitely had his hands on us. Again, we've heard the horror stories on the news. We know some folks who have had horror stories, and definitely coming, even now when we mention to folks that we've had COVID, there's that fear in folks' faces of oh my gosh, are you okay? We're like, we are fine. I'm not even gonna sit here and even complain about my little cough and the little fatigue and all that, because we are fine, thank God.
Yeah.
Have you guys experienced, because some people that I know that have had COVID, they have like what they call COVID aftermath.
Yeah.
And have you experienced any COVID aftermath?
Well, after COVID, once we did our 2-week quarantine, so I'm a workhorse, so I was like, okay, I need to test negative because I need to go back to work. I need to we're shooting music videos. I was like, and so after the recommended quarantine, I was the first one out to go get tested, and I was like, I was praying. I was like, so everybody in our house got retested. And we weren't out until we all got a negative test. And so once I got a negative test and Mima got a negative test, the kids got a negative test, I think that allowed us to kind of be a little free. And then, we had to pretty much sanitize the house from top to bottom. And I think that's a reality that folks really don't talk about a lot as well. Just, for our sanity, we wanted to make sure we were absolutely germ-free. So we definitely went through washing everything.
We washed everything.
My wife had a week of laundry of just everything you could think of. Everything. Getting stuff professionally done, all that stuff, just making sure we could be at peace again and not have to worry about touching this and touching that and all of that. Furniture, our floors, just everything. And then once we got tested, all that being done, the house is clean again. And then it's like, the thing about us is that it's not that we were being irresponsible with going out, but so now it's like, okay, we're re-entering like different spaces again. Like I'm going back to work again, and you're going back to Target.
Yes.
Again, from working from home and all of these different things. And so dealing with the re-entry period, I think that's something that was interesting. We're blessed that we're part of, we work at a church, we're part of a church that, it wasn't like people were looking at us funny. Folks were praying for us, and it's kind of like, but there are some spaces where it could feel a little awkward re-entering, whether it be work and things like that. But we were confident in the fact that, hey, we tested negative, and our house is sanitized, and we're just ready to move on from this and share what helped us and continue to grow and learn with our community. But as far as the after effects, I think we got our taste back. We don't have, we're back to our normal selves. For me with the pregnancy, which is unique, I have I have a couple of pregnancy-induced symptoms, so it's not that they're not abnormal to pregnancy, like fatigue and nausea and stuff, but it was just with COVID, they just made them really strong. And so those have finally subdued a little bit, I could say now. But yes, as far as taste, smell, headaches, and we thankfully didn't have any underlying medical conditions, so we didn't have any flare-ups or anything like that. Yeah, and it took about 3 weeks after we tested negative to find our normal again. I think that's an aspect of it that's important. Our normal with scheduling, work, kids.
It's almost like your body is regenerating.
Exactly.
Right?
Your normal, how you run your household, making sure you're doing all the stuff you got to do, because if you're not feeling well and you're having body aches, you're on the couch, you're in bed, you're resting to make sure you can go through this the best way possible. So getting your house back in order as a family, that's a huge aspect of it as well.
Yes. Well, Pastor Matt does this great job of engaging the online audience, which I haven't done tonight. And I have this big sign in front of me that says, engage the online audience. So I want to engage with you right now. If you have any COVID questions or tips, please type them in the comments. And we will do our best to get answers to you and resources. One of the things that we did want to address tonight as we talk about COVID-19 is the vaccine. And as a church, we wanted to give you some resources. We had thought about doing a panel, but there are two resources that are available, and they've done such a great job. TD Jakes did a discussion on COVID-19, and Reverend Liz Walker also did a very dynamic discussion on COVID-19 and the vaccine. So we're going to put those resources on the screen so you can avail yourself to that. We are still in discussion and still in research in terms of what we're deciding to do, but we think that, you know, taking the vaccine is a very personal, it's a personal discussion. It's a personal choice. Now, there's so many, you know, they're saying there's so many strains of it, but I think in the African American community, especially those of us with underlying health issues, it's really important to do the research. And if you have an underlying medical condition, it is really important for you to talk to your doctor and get all the information that you need, because I think what you said earlier is so true, is that, listen, we could be sitting here alive 6 months from now if we, you know, put all of the processes, whether it's a vaccine, whether it's making sure you're staying within the limits in terms of numbers of people in your house. We can put all of those in place so that we are sitting here six months from now alive and well. So as a church community, we really wanted to really talk about this, whether you get it, whether you haven't, you know, contracted it. I think you gave that great statistic, 1 in 5 people. So someone around you will eventually get COVID. And the other thing that's really important is we must check on each other. My grandmother, you know, whenever I'm tested, I make sure that I go to see her, because once I'm tested, I know, I'm like, I'm good. Because in my heart, you know, I wouldn't want to go see her and maybe I'm asymptomatic. So, but we talk on the phone every week. I'm checking on her. I'm seeing how she's doing. We're talking about the vaccine. We're talking about, you know, she lives in an elderly community, and they're, you know, helping them to get the vaccine. And the other thing about the vaccine is it's 2 parts. Mm-hmm. So there have been a lot of people in our community that get the first part, but they don't go back to get the second part. Mm-hmm. And then when you don't go back to get the second part, it's wasting a vaccine that someone who maybe has an underlying health issue could have received. Mm-hmm. So this is just like the beginning of the conversation to kind of talk about how it impacts families, for you to go online and review the 2 resources that we've given you. But then also Representative Liz Miranda on Instagram, she's always posting information about COVID and access to the vaccine and access to information. So, you know, Wednesday nights for the month of February, we've decided to enter into these conversations and engage our community in terms of, you know, the health issues and what's going on in our culture and our community. And so I just want to thank you guys for being so open and honest and, you know, I mean, holding it down when it comes to keeping your house clean and sanitizing all of that, and still COVID came in, you know? So, you know, thank you, Jubilee. And do you have any closing remarks? Pastor Robeson, you don't have anything to say?
No, this is great. Thanks for having us. Wear your mask.
Sanitizers, wash your hands, double mask,
And
whatever makes you comfortable. Yep.
Mima, that's so amazing. It's what makes you comfortable, but still be safe, right? And that was the one thing, like even, you know, you said it well. You said this, having COVID gave you a different sensitivity to those who have contracted it. And I know, your story and then listening to our daughter, really, I mean, her heart, just hearing that cry and then knowing the kids got it, I mean, that brought another sensitivity to me as well. And so thank you, Jubilee, for tuning in. Remember to really go to those resources and watch so that you can be an informed person when it comes to the vaccine and what's happening in our community with COVID. Be blessed.
What is going on, family? Listen, I don't know what you're doing right now, but I just need you to pause on it just for a couple of seconds because I have an announcement. On February 19th, Jubilee Worship is dropping a new single called Redeeming the Years. And guys, guess what? It's featuring the amazing, the incredible Pastor Travis Green. That's right. Jubilee Worship and Travis Green have joined forces to bring you Redeeming the Years, and it'll be available on all digital outlets. Not only that, but also on February 19th, there'll be a premiere of a new Jubilee Worship music video for the song Redeeming the Years. You want to tell everybody about it, find it, listen to it, bless somebody else with it. Check it out.
What is up, Jubilee family? Listen, I just want to thank you so much for your continued support and your continued giving. We really appreciate you. There is 5 different ways that you can give. Yes, 5. I know that's a lot, but listen, the first way that you can give is through PushPay. If you text Jubilee Boston or Jubilee Stoughton to 77977, you can give through there. The other way is Givelify. If you download the app Givelify and look up Jubilee Boston, you can give your tithe or offering through there. If you don't like that one, okay, you can just go to the website. On the website, I think this one's the easiest one. You go to jubileeboston.org and you can just tithe right through there. Also, there's Cash App. If you Cash App $ Jubilee Boston, you can give your tithe and offering through there. And the last and final way, hey, to me, this is probably the most difficult one to do because I don't mail anything. But if you want to mail in your offering to 1500 Blue Hill Avenue, Mattapan, MA 02126, I know that because I've memorized that address for 21 years. You can mail it in through there and we will receive the offering. Thank you so much for your continued support. We love you.
Life groups are back, and we have life groups for everyone. Ladies, Rise Women's life groups are up and ready for you to sign up. And fellas, we have life groups for you too. Head over to our website to be a part of a community. Let's do life together.
Okay, Jubilee, listen, it is the year of new beginnings, which means that there is new merch, okay? You need to go to jubileeboston.org right now. Don't delay it, just do it right now and cop yourself a New Beginnings hoodie. They are fire. Go get you one right now.
We really hope you've been enjoying our new series, A New Table by our pastors. It's happening all month long and we're super excited. Bishop and Sister T are stopping by, and on February 28th, Pastors Travis and Jackie Green will be in the building live. It's sure to be an amazing time. It's already been a blessing and only goes up from here. Stay tuned.
Come on, wherever you are right now, come on, clap. Give God some praise. As Pastor Will would say, type and say, amen. God met us right here. I know you felt the presence of the Lord right where you are. Conversation next. I know you took some good notes. I pray that you that you share this, because there are some people that needed to hear this conversation. Thank you for joining us this evening. I'll see you again during Conversation Next.